It was all good. You do.
I just don't do open sea well. I don't do
smooth
open
as
sea.
glass. Didn't have any Dramamine. Nothing.
I know, but I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I just feel what would happen if all. I know it. Great. And then Larry Gatlin. Did you meet Larry?
I did. Yes, and I talked to Bill Gaither, and we're going to try to get him to Fresno.
Oh gosh, great. Oh,
he's 86 and has energy of a 50-year-old.
yeah,
Amazing.
He's just warming up.
He's just warming up. Good
funny guy. Did they have that guy that's the funny one? The funny
Mark
dude?
Lowry?
Yes.
He was not there, but they had another comedian that was really good, so
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah, they do a lot of good shtick in between there. They have fun. They really.
Yeah.
You know, that was Billy Graham's message that, hey, you have fun as Christians. People think Christians, they don't laugh. They sit there sitting in their seat waiting for the second coming.
Face.
Yeah. And that's not true.
Not at all.
My buddy Bob, strong Christian, and you love to have fun.
You do
Bullet
good
Bob, welcome.
Thank you. You do a good long face. I just wanted you to know that. That was excellent.
The horse came into the bar. Bartender said, hey, why the long face? Free for All Friday. Bobby, you were explaining something here on Free for All. We're going to get into this. To this invasion, this raid, or as CNN is trying to portray it. Nothing more than Avon calling. Not a raid, just a simple knock on the door and a request to come in and look for a few things and check into the wardrobe of your wife, rummage through all your personal items, and by the way, make sure the cameras are off. We're going to touch on all that. That was the demand of the FBI. Interesting stuff. But Bobby, you were in the middle of a story as we came on air. Is it worthy of going forward? Or you want to wait till, or you want to get right into the boxes at Mar-a-Lago?
I don't know. You were laughing at me while I was trying to read this thing, so I thought maybe you wanted to just push it off. And
I'm not the boss of this show. This is Free for All Friday. I'm just a guy behind the mic with very little power. I'm not like the federal government. I don't wield abuse of power like that. Can't make you do things. I can ask. 87,000 IRS agents. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Only going after the billionaires.
Hey, by the way,
You better. Yes.
Today is what people may not remember. I don't remember this.
I like this on this day segments you have. These are pretty
on
good.
this day, Larry,
Yep.
August 12th, 1955.
I was 3 years old.
I was too. President Eisenhower signed into effect a new law raising the minimum wage from 75 cents to $1 an hour. Now, that didn't get to us in Riverdale because in 1968, we were still making $1 an hour.
They were still trading chickens to me.
We were bartering.
Carlos, can you come out and pick this cotton? We got a couple of roosters you can have. And
we're doing trade outs. Yeah. Well, I'll give you a pig if I can have some food.
$1 an hour. Larry, my dad,
Amazing.
I can remember, topped out at $2.65 an hour when he passed away.
That's something.
Yeah. But money went longer and you were still on the gold standard then. Money meant something.
Yeah.
The more I read about that but we're all over the place right here in a segment, but in 1972 when Nixon did something that was kind of under the radar screen, but it was huge in terms of its impact on the economy when he went off the gold standard. Back in the day, money used to mean something, folks.
Yeah.
Had to be backed up. A dollar bill, paper, had to be backed up with that amount of gold.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Fort Knox.
it was just a piece of paper, a promissory note. Kind of like Chief Justice Anton Scalia talked about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. He said, if you don't actually live this stuff out and reflect it in your society, it's just words on parchment paper.
Yeah.
These rights to free speech, this right to bear arms, and same thing with the money. I mean, unless you're saying, hey, trust us, this is a value, but then you got a $23 trillion deficit, printing more money. Larry,
we can pay all our bills.
Money?
We can pay all our bills. Just print some more.
There you go.
I never thought that the American dollar would become monopoly money, but it has.
Let me ask you this. Exactly. Let me ask you, you were kidding me about being a conspiracy theorist. I don't have I bring up scenarios. I bring up possible, hopefully they're plausible scenarios. I watch Tucker Carlson. I watch Don Lemon. I'm all over the place. So you don't have to watch it, folks. I can bring all that nonsense in there. Tucker says all over, on this UFO. It's obvious he believes in UFOs, believes in all this nonsense and everything. I don't come forth with implausible things like now he's on the UFOs come down are mutilating cows.
Who said that?
Tucker on his show. You can go on Fox Nation, and it's been going on for decades. They come down, they can't be detected, but they go into a pasture in Colorado and suck out the brains of cows and the insides and pop them up there and goes back to their planet and does gosh, who knows what with them. That's his latest theory. I don't come up with things like that.
As long as they leave the filet mignon part.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, leave us something down here.
I had a buddy of mine, he liked his meat rare, real rare. One time the waitress, he says, ordered steak rare. And she says, well, how rare would you like it, sir? He says, just knock the wind out of it.
As it's going by.
He was an old cowboy. The other line was just run it through the chute and wipe its butt, which I didn't want to say on TV, but I miss that individual. But my question to you, Larry, do you think there's a segment of our political landscape, and I'm going to be specific, I'm not going to be cute here, the woke left, that would like to keep young people ignorant from kindergarten on through, if they decide to go to junior college and college, on really how economics work, how really Marxism works or doesn't work, and how free markets work and don't work. Because it astounded me how many on the left that have, Bullet Bob, I'm serious, degrees from the most prestigious, is it prestigious or prestigious, Larry?
Prestigious.
Okay, most prestigious universities in the country,
right,
that subscribe to the notion if you run into money issues, funding issues in America, simply print more money. Larry, I've heard it more than once.
Yeah.
And whatever happened to economics in class? I used to fall asleep in it, but at least they made an effort. The system made an effort. Mr. Grohl, remember Mr. Groening in there? God bless him. I love him, Pearl. We're talking about economics. And he's like, and he'd just bob. And then inevitably, he would see you. He was like, so then he would go. And this economic trend began in England in 1952, didn't it, Robert?
Yeah. You sure did.
All right, but the question to the educator: why has that been de-emphasized?
Well, what happens is you can't control a people unless you can control the money. Okay, if you can control the money, reduce their ability to do things for themselves, and that's exactly what's happening. Is they've created a situation where they're dependent. Everybody's dependent on the government to make sure they have funds to buy things they need. So not just things you want anymore, but things you need. And as a result, they can control you. And that's basically what's happening. Is the left doesn't have a message that it will last unless they have control. And that's the problem. Once people realize that, hey, I can do things for myself, I don't need the left anymore,
But that basic economic principle, as Thomas Sowell said, he wrote a book on basic economics. He was asked in an interview by Peter Robinson, why didn't you put any graphs? Books like this always have graphs. He says, I wanted people to read it.
Yeah.
And it's basic principles. And one of the basic principles in there is the more money supply you have in the money supply, the less value that is. And if you don't have a strong correlation, a little bit more, the ideal thing was Reagan's view of it. You always have a little bit more supply than you have demand. That keeps prices stable. You have you have few more widgets than you have the demand, just a little. Then that prevents inflation or deflation. But do they understand the dangers of out of control inflation? It has brought down every single country that's let that wild bull out of the chute. And there was not a cowboy that could ride it. You let it get going so high, nobody can ride that bull, and it proceeds to tear up everything in your society.
When your philosophy becomes more important than the reality, that's when you have the problem. And that's what's happened. They're more interested in their philosophy being accepted and spread wide than they are in the stability of the country.
Which goes back to my original question.
Yeah.
In history, you can't historically point to that type of system where you just print your way out of recession, print your way into economic prosperity.
It's never worked.
It's never worked. Yet they're not taught. The students are not taught. Now, here's one side of it.
Yeah.
And they talk about Keynesian. Almost every economist is a Keynesian in some aspect, that the government does have a role. Back in the 50s, it was adopted that, the government can come in at certain times, stimulate an economy. But he didn't believe in raising taxes during that time. He said that would be disastrous. Now you have Biden printing more money and now going to raise taxes. And you just wonder why the system doesn't, if you know and you do intellectually, these professors, these institutions, these great universities know where this ends, yet they refuse to teach it. So you're left, what are your deductions from that? What's your conclusion from that? One of them that has to be in the mix for discussion on the table is these folks want to see America as we know it destroyed economically and every way else. Everywhere else, tear down the statues, tear down history. And you would say, well, and that's so far right. I'd say, listen, that's one deduction I see from this. Why? What other reason would they withhold those teachings from their students and say this big government Marxist way to go, print money when you get into trouble, is the way?
They don't want
if you don't subscribe to that, you're a right-wing wacko.
They don't want kids to be able to make choices for themselves. That's the whole thing.
So
they think they're better.
They want
they're the smartest kid in the class.
Yeah.
Well, they want to program rather than educate.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. A free society is one that can make decisions for themselves. And a free society leads to folks being able to discuss in ways that are not, angry with each other as well. And you can just have discussions. We used to have that in America.
Yeah. Critical thinking, I think they used to call it, right?
Call it that. But we don't get to do that anymore. You have to believe in a certain way or the media is going to blast you.
Isn't it ironic? I'm just hitting me.
Yeah.
I'm really getting into these old Greek philosophers. They used to put me to sleep back in the day. Aristotle, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, Socrates. And man, they are so interesting. And you look at their teachings or what Western civilization was based upon. And Socrates, who never wrote anything down, it was Plato who took his interactions
and put it on paper.
Right. He wrote the Republic and wrote all these things from Plato's teachings. And Socrates simply said, hey, I'd like to question, you say there's 187 gods. How do we know that's true? Where are you getting your information on that? Well, that drove me crazy. Well, does Zeus really exist? He just said, ask the questions. And you look at what challenging the status quo, and you see how that ended up for him. They killed him. They made him drink hemlock because he said asking or influencing. He would have been on, Twitter's internet is a big influencer.
Sure.
Social media influencer back in the day. Just by simply encouraging people to ask questions about the status quo. He was convicted. He started out with like 400. We're going to convict you. They couldn't do it. They got it down to 200. They still couldn't convict Socrates. I think at the end there, it was like 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
They convicted him.
Some guy from Walmart.
Yeah. And he said, yes. And you had no disrespect to Walmart. He didn't say Target, did he? All right. But you know what they convicted him on? Corrupting the youth.
Oh, boy.
And they brought in the hemlock. He said some joke going out that is, but doesn't that sound like what's going on right now?
Yeah.
If you talk about CRT, you embrace critical thinking, you ask questions.
Yep.
They want to, if not physically kill you, cancel you from.
Well, and I think that's a good
Bob,
point.
am I onto something
to
here,
pick up on? Well, I'm just a country boy like you are, and I've never been considered a real bright shining
You're
light
a smart guy in my book.
intellectually.
You're one of the wisest men I've ever known, Pearl.
But I think there's 2 prongs to what Larry and you have been discussing. Number one, obviously, is the financial aspect of it, and teaching kids the economics, the real economics of how it works in a capitalist society, in a free democracy. The other one is, and we've seen this play out for the last number of years, and it falls into the CRT thing, falls into the woke left, is to keep the people divided. If you can't come up with if you can't come up with a reason to make one up. Keep the people divided. You keep them under control. The same thing you were talking about, Larry. If the government, they want you dependent on the government for the control. So you have to be dependent on the government for your money, whatever, everything you have, and at the same time keep the people divided to keep that agitation stirred up, to keep it moving.
I agree with you 100%.
Thomas Sowell, here's one of his quotes. Author of Basic Economics, says this: "I've never understood why it is greed to want to keep the money you have earned, but not greed to want to take somebody else's money."
There you go. There you
Larry,
go.
Gosh, thank you for that.
That's
Thomas Sowell in a nutshell.
It is.
Folks, if you appreciate that kind of logic, you got to start reading Thomas Sowell. Go on YouTube. He's an African American, has a great story from the South, raised in New York, but he will not be literally put in political change. He will not. He was called everything Uncle Tom and all of this stuff, and he was a Marxist. You know what changed him from being a Marxist? He wasn't in William Friedman's class. William Friedman he had a big influence on Thomas Sowell. Took his class. William Friedman was a great. I don't know if it's William Friedman. I think he was a director, but Friedman, the great economist. And he was asked, "Did that change you?" He goes, "No." He said, "What is the year I worked for the government?"
I remember that.
Yes, he went in. It was in the Department of Agriculture, I believe. And I will tell that story one day. But
Sowell captures another thing we've been talking about here. He says this: when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear.
There you go.
Ben,
he's so bright.
See, that's how those Greek philosophers, the good ones, were. They could take subjects that are rattling around our mind and just trying to explain it into words in our own mind to be able to discuss it. Well, it's like they say about, what is communism? Well, the Polish say it's the hardest, most painful way to capitalism. You're eventually going to end there.
Yeah.
You're eventually going to end up with a free market system, letting the freedom of the people go. So, but
one more.
Oh, man,
quote.
Keep them coming.
Listen, it's amazing how much panic one honest man can spread among a multitude of hypocrites. Let me say that again. It's amazing how much panic one honest man can spread among a multitude of hypocrites.
Isn't it, though? Gosh. And it's such a sense of humor. I've never seen him rattle.
No.
And I've seen him in interviews where they were really coming at him, bullet. And
he calms down when that happens.
Yes, you can see him gearing, but you see him controlling it. Okay, that stoicism that he has kicking in to make his very logical case, which usually just slices and dices the attack on him.
I got to give you one more.
Man, I love it. Oh, it's free for all Friday.
Much of the social history of the Western world over the past 3 decades has involved replacing what worked with what sounded good. Is that what we're facing?
A lot of truth in that.
And you wonder why they want to keep him quiet.
Yeah.
God bless the Hoover Institute for giving this man a home up there at Stanford, of all places.
Yeah.
Hoover Institute, a great think tank here in California, still going.
Yeah.
And Thomas Sowell's still with us. He's 93, doesn't do much anymore.
Right.
But he's the people, or his disciples, still move forward. He said, now that we're finally, we'll go to break. And James, hang in there because we'll come back to you. I know you have a comment on the gold standard. Thomas Sowell said, they talk about the so-called experts. Says that they're the best. And it goes back to the Vietnam War, the so-called McNamara whiz kids.
Oh yeah,
that influenced President Johnson, that kept us in a war that we're not going to win for like 5-6 years more. All of these sycophants that were in the housing industry that were advising the Wall Street on what to do. Brilliant people that were the experts, almost destroy the economy. They did destroy it. But Thomas Sowell says, do you ever notice when there is a world crisis or a crisis at home here, there's always somebody with a Harvard degree in the middle of it?
Well, he also says intellect is not wisdom.
Yeah. Well, he said, too, about going to Harvard. And here's a guy's a graduate from Harvard.
Yeah.
And they said, what was the best thing about going to Harvard? But he goes, I don't have to be impressed by somebody that goes to Harvard anymore.
I love that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. James, you hang in there. Amanda, always great to hear from you. I see you're up on the line, and we will get to you when we get back. This is Free for All Friday, and what a blessing it is to have Mr. Larry.
For all of our Facebook friends, socialism in general has a record of failure so blatant that only an intellectual could ignore it or evade it.
I love it.
I mean, he's got so many of them.
Well, you know what a communist optimist says? Well, it can't get any worse.
That's good.
I heard that the other day. I like that. Oh, man, if you got one, call us or email us, man. Love you all.
Yeah.
Love you. Oh, and Laura, thank you for your call the other day. And I think, though, you of research fame, and I'm not saying that meaning at all. You are one researched young lady. I love you. Love all the folks that listen. And Laura and I think we've proven we can disagree on things sometimes passionately. We're still friends. I think the world of Laura. I love her and her family. And I know I feel she feels the same way about me. But she said this Judge Reinhardt, this magistrate judge.
The guy that signed the warrant?
That signed the warrant. I believe Laura said that he was a Trump appointee. Now, I think there was some confusion because there was two conversations going on about a judge in Florida that they didn't use, and something Laura had some information on him and stuff. And then this Reinhardt. But I asked her who appointed, and I was meaning Reinhardt. And she said it was Trump. And I don't think, I'm looking because he's an ardent Obama supporter. He contributed to Obama's campaign. And anyway, that to me, that does mean something. Why would you go to a magistrate? If you were a magistrate and you would say, you know what, this is a little bit above my pay grade. I'm going to bring in a higher level judge to help me. I mean, you're saying you want to go into
a president's residence?
Yeah. Or I would take that, Larry, to anybody.
Yeah.
You want to go into Bullet Bob's house over there in Fresno and see if he's using illegal golf clubs?
Let me clean it up a little bit first. Let me vacuum.
Yeah. But what we're interested in is not the warrant, it's that affidavit.
Yeah.
Because the warrant's just going to tell you what you can search. And there's some things there as well, because they said turn off the security cameras. They were only going to search this room. They went in Melania's closet. Apparently, what we're hearing is they didn't turn it off. So we're waiting for that footage to come out.
Yeah.
But the affidavit tells why.
Oh,
here's what
the
we're
application
looking
for the warrant?
Actually, that affidavit.
Okay.
They have to tell this judge we're looking for A, B, C, and D.
Specifics.
Yeah.
Wow.
For some nuclear top secret weapons, here's what we're looking for. Yeah. And then he's really on the hook, Merrick Garland says, because he came out and said it in his press conference. We always use more non-intrusive means when we can. Well, they were working hand in hand with Trump, getting what they wanted, taking a little time.
Yeah.
They didn't say you better get this or we're going to come and get you.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry, No Retreat. Jerry Reed there from, I think, Smokey and the Bandit. Yeah, I never watched. I like Smokey and the Bandit 1, Larry.
Yeah.
With Jackie Gleason.
Yes.
I think he just stole.
He was great.
Oh, gosh, he was great. But not a big fan of those Southern action movies. I'd watch them every now and then, but they got repetitious. But, man, I could use that now. Just a little bit of mindless, smoky sheriff chasing bootleggers and
transferring beer across state line.
Rather than being preached at and socially engineered movies on Netflix that have to check every box with the class. Anyway. Hey, let's go to James, Longville, Texas. He's been waiting a while. James, you there, brother?
I'm here, brother. Anyhow, Alan, I just want to get your thoughts. We can't go back to the gold standard, but do you think we're going to go back to more of a barter standard? I fix your brakes if you cook me dinner.
Hey, I think that could happen locally. Larry, that's a great question.
Let me tell you, we're already doing it. The underground economy is absolutely huge, and they've been doing it for probably the last 8 to 10 years, where you're trading services, and it is a big part of the economy, and the government's trying to figure out a way to tax the underground economy.
Yeah, it works. I mean, with Bob and I the other day, this is in practice. My dishwasher broke down. Called Bob. I said, Bob, can one is good with dishwashers? He says, and I said, I'll trade you a Choo-Choo Coleman rookie card. And he was over there like that.
Choo-Choo Coleman.
Win-win. I got a dishwasher worked, and he's got a Choo-Choo Coleman New York Mets rookie card. What do you think about that?
Anytime I fix anything, it's a red letter day. Believe me, because I am all thumbs.
I'm not good at that. Do you think we're going to get? I like James's. I think you're going to see that locally happen. And like you said, it's already
for years.
Yeah, we're doing that kind of thing because I think people are sick and tired of every aspect of your life being chronicled and measured and written about. And, you have to document everything you do nowadays. So, for example, going on this trip to Canada and on our cruise, we had to do a thing called Arrive Canada. The form was ridiculous on what we had to fill out. And we weren't getting off the boat in Canada. We were going to stay on the boat. We weren't even getting off, but you still had to fill it out.
Canada is the biggest communist stronghold in North America.
Man, it's crazy.
It is, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. Yeah. I think that's a great. But let me tell you, go ahead.
No, the barter system has been in place obviously for years and years and years, and it was a strong form of economy way back when in the early years. How about we get free meals at your restaurant? And that's the way it would work.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Because, absolutely.
You'd get a car dealership to come in and run spots on the air, and they'd say, well, we'll let you
use a car for a month.
Use the car, yeah. So that was the common transaction.
I can remember in the early 60s, that, at least in Riverdale, the
digging
doctor,
deep, going way back.
Yeah, but early 60s. I mean, that was a long time ago. We're getting up there. But I can remember doctors actually doing house calls.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Hill would come out to our house. I don't know about Dr. Hunt. We went to Dr. Hill, but I'd heard stories of Dr. Hunt. Those are two doctors in Riverdale, by the way, folks. Town of 2,300
Hunt and
people.
Hill.
Yeah, Hunt and Hill. And they would come out to your, if you need be, they would come to your home.
Oh, yeah.
And you go back a little further. Of course, we were billed for that, but you go back a little further, and they obviously they made the home with us. There wasn't big offices, and it took a lot to get in that horse and carriage and go into town when you were sick.
Yeah,
and they would trade eggs, sides of beef, bacon, for those services. And that was
and
back,
it worked.
Well, that's when I think doctors got into the business. And I'm making a broad swath this, so I'm not meaning all doctors. But there's been a big shift. You became a doctor because of the Hippocratic Oath. You wanted to help people. There was so much disease going back. There wasn't a lot of antibiotics. A lot at stake there. A shortage of doctors, not enough doctors. And they wanted to truly help people get well and stay well. The end result was not to get filthy rich. Now there's a lot of people that get in to become doctors because they want to get filthy rich. They want to play golf. They want to have and I don't mean all doctors, and I don't mean even those doctors would not want to help people. But you see what is happening to try to get in to see a doctor.
Yeah.
The wait time, the callousness from billing. Well, you haven't paid this bill because you can't come in. Well, I am a little hard times. Well, tough. You can't see the doctor till your bill's up to date. How much you owe? $190. Well, a lot of families going,
don't have $190.
Don't have another $190. They will not let you in and see that doctor. I can't remember a time in the history of this country
there's not
you
much,
had doctors allowing that to happen.
Not much difference between Hippocratic and Hippocratic. So.
Man, I'm telling you, really. Amanda, we got Amanda. Let's go to Amanda. Line 2. Amanda from Viva Las Vegas. Hey, how you doing, dear?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just waiting breathlessly for your pearls of wisdom.
What my pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean that, sincerely. Go ahead.
Well, you were talking about the economy and how there's when I'm dating myself, but 30 years ago when I went to high school, we had government and economics our senior year. We had one semester of each. But one thing, and I don't know that they still do that now in public schools. My kids have all since graduated several years ago. But one thing I do know is that if you want to put somebody to sleep, give them an economics book, and that'll do it. But also, they're not taught, because at least I know these were elective courses like personal finance. I mean, people don't understand personal finance, much less how are they going to understand the economics of how the world works if you don't understand your own personal finances. So when talking about you can just print more money, it's like, well, no, that's not how it works, but they just don't realize that when you print more money, then that causes all these other issues, and they just get mad because then, it's who do we blame and all that kind of thing. The biggest thing for younger generations to understand economics is they have to they have to understand how it works for them personally. Because
right, great point.
I took a course. For one of my math options in high school was math of consumer economics, and that taught everything. That taught you how you find the best mortgage rates, what affects your mortgage rates, how you buy a car, how you buy life insurance, how you buy, just all kind of stuff. And it was one of the best classes I ever took. But whenever you're learning all that, then you go and you see this is how insurance, interest rates are affected, because if this is going on and the Dow's up or the Dow, all that kind of thing. To me, I think for all these young folks, they have to understand personal finances before they can even begin to understand how greater economics works.
That's a great point.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. And Amanda, I was just sitting there thinking when you were saying it, the basic stuff that that it starts out with the simple things that affect your everyday life. For example, the concept of the accumulation of small savings. By that, I mean, I grew up, my mom would comparison shop. She would look at the price of bread and she'd find that, this, can of pork and beans is compared to this. And she watched every time. I grew up because I didn't learn. I wanted to play pro football and play baseball. All I cared about in comparison shopping. And you look and say, so you save $3, Mom, during that bill. But you save it every time, and you look the accumulation of that.
Yep.
And she was able to save enough for me to get a new pair of pants when I went to school, and that was a big thing back in the day. Our family, minimum wage family, when we felt when you fall and you tear your knee in your pants, you didn't get a new pair of pants. You got those iron-on patches underneath there, and just a simple thing like that, of learning, to use coupons that are out there. Comparison
S&H green stamps.
Yeah, I got my first baseball glove. I got my first baseball glove with S&H
Shields and Maroa, where that was.
Yeah. That's that's what you brought up was very important. Just learn those basic things, and then you will learn more about how the economy works.
Yes, and the thing is that I can tell you when I started going to college. I mean, you go to a college campus, and they're just throwing credit card applications at students.
Gosh, yes.
Everything is just, and it's instead of, having a car that you can afford, well, you're just always going to have a car payment. Well, no,
right.
You're not. It's just the idea of you can just put everything on credit and it's going to be fine. No. That's not how it works. I live for the day where we've got almost both cars paid off. 3 months away, and I'm really excited. But my husband has his car. He's 17 years old. Runs like a top. Looks
there you go.
Like it's showroom ready. And we can drive across the country if we had to. And we're so happy that we don't have a car payment.
Yeah. And explain it, yeah.
You know, and
yeah, absolutely.
But it's just that we've become such a disposable society of, you just go get a new one and you just put it on a credit card, and you're always just going to have debt. You're always going to have a car payment. You're always going to have a mortgage payment.
Well, you know, let me ask you this. I think as parents, at least my generation, I think we really missed the boat and really didn't. We got to take some culpability in this. As I saw the curriculums removing things like this about economics, home economics, how to make a family work and economically, and just go away, metal shop, wood shop, all those things go away. The emphasis on math and science, if you can't come up with the next generation of computer, there's really no place for you in the society in terms of a job. I saw us heading that way. It was very, very foolish and destructive ideology, but there they went. Mm-hmm. And I didn't counterbalance that at home. I didn't sit my kids down and say, okay, this is going to bore the living dickens out of you, but I'm going to explain some of the things that you just pointed out. Why, and I'm going to send you to the store. I'm going to give you this amount of money, and here's what I would like you to bring back. And I should have done things like where you can save, I'm going to let you keep anything under $100 here, but here's what I need. We need some toilet paper. We need some Spam. We need some Spam's very underrated, by the way. I hear people put down Spam,
especially fried.
Oh my gosh! But you know, we didn't do that. And I know a lot of boomer parents out there whose kids are they can relate to this. We didn't take the action to do that. I'm trying to do that with my grandson. You know, teaching him the importance of that. But really appreciate your call. We got some other calls there, Amanda. But boy, you always bring up some great points. Let's go to Debbie on line 4. Debbie, are you there, Debbie? From Cincinnati. It's one that I always find a difficult time spelling. Cincinnati, Ohio. Mississippi. I don't. I was taught. Remember the Mississippi?
Yes. Crooked letter, crooked letter, I. Crooked letter, I.
It's just about as stupid spelling.
C-I-N, C-I-double-N.
Hey, you wanted to talk about some mindless stuff, and that's me, because I'm kind of mindless, and I'm very simple-minded with what I got. But you know what? It's the weekend.
Yes.
We're in America. Let's just enjoy it.
Hey, I love it. I love
Deb,
it.
Are you guys going to the track this weekend?
Yeah, it's the first time in about a month we're going to race one of them.
There you go.
Because of the price, you know.
Yeah. Good for you.
We haven't decided which one we're going to. Mine's running better than his right now, so they will probably take mine.
Okay.
But, you know,
That's
when I listen
to
you, Alan, and you guys with him, it's what it's about.
Yeah.
Hey, Deb, I got something good for you. This is Larry. My son-in-law was at Bonneville, and it was race week, and they hold the record for their class of car, 357 miles an hour, but it rained, and the salt turned to mush. And so they have a picture of him behind the race car on skis being pulled. So if you go to Salt Lake City newspaper, you'll see him skiing behind it. You know?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Well, you know what, Debbie, you just brought up something. I would encourage everyone, I spent some times in my life where I was so laser beam blinders on in achieving a goal. And it's good to be ambitious and set goals and go after them. I believe that. But you've always got to keep something in your life that lets you get away from it. You know, I love working out in the gym, but you get gym weary. You need to take some time off from things you even love. And I know when you go to your Drag Racers Anonymous meeting, you have other people
exactly.
That was just such a good point you brought up, though. Take some time. We do whatever it is that you do. And I remember when this really hit home for me, I was a mayor, and I didn't know how to say. I knew how to say no, but I was constantly being hit with situations to say no, and that drains you. Doing good, it says in the Bible, never tire of doing good. You know why it's in the Bible? Because we get tired of doing good. That's why he says you got to beware of that. And I always tried to do good. I made mistakes more than my share, but of all places, I would go out and walk in the cotton fields out in Riverdale, the cotton fields that I used to be out there picking that I hated and tried to escape my whole life because I thought it was a prison, suddenly became my freedom. I'd go back there and I could forget everything. I could listen to the wind. You could actually hear the wind. You can't do that in Fresno.
The refuge.
And that became part of my routine my whole 8 years, and I thank God for it, to get away from those things and spend a little quiet time with you and God. I mean, God's always there with you.
And, it's just, when it all boils down to it, it is just you and God. And, he supplies what you need, whether it's what you want, but it's what
Very
you need.
good
And when you
distinction.
figure it out, you know that, and I can always go back to this. I've told you before that I had a liver transplant, and it's been almost 3 years.
All right.
And by the grace of God, I'm still doing good. But, it gets cold here in Cincinnati. It gets real cold here in Cincinnati. And one day last winter, this is going to sound real stupid, but one day last winter, I went out in the garage, and I sat down in my Super Bee, and I sat there. I didn't even start it. I just sat there to smell it.
I get it.
And I don't know, a car person knows what I'm talking about, but it's the gas and the oil and just the mustiness of an old car. And I sat there just to smell it and pray and thank the Lord that, that I had what I have. It's not much, and I know you could take it away tomorrow, but you know what, Lord, you gave it to me for a time. It is a season.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You just have to appreciate what the Lord gives you, and He gives you weekends to be with your family, to be with your friends, and you need to get away from all this stupid stuff in Washington and all these stupid people, because God will handle it.
Boy, great words. Appreciate it so much. Those are great words. Thanks for calling in. We're going to go to Laura here. The wonderful word, not just words, great advice for all of us. All of us. Can we go to Laura on line 1? Laura, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. You got some info. I think I said, Dadgum, my eyesight. I think you have info on Bruce
Reinhardt.
Judge Bruce Reinhardt. Go.
Okay.
Go for it.
He was actually appointed by a panel of 3 federal district judges who, that's their job. They appoint the lower federal judges.
Oh, a panel does. Okay.
Yes, 3 of them. And 2 of them were appointed by Donald Trump in 2017, and one of them was appointed by George W. Bush. He's actually the head of the panel in 2006. And Bruce Reinhardt was appointed and then was sworn in on March 19th, 2018. With the approval and signature of Ron DeSantis. So.
Yeah, no. That's. Hey, one thing.
Sorry, Rick Scott. It was Rick Scott.
I promise you, folks. Honest to goodness, I'm just. There's a lot of things that I don't ever claim to be an expert on anything other than not being an expert. I'm an expert on not being an expert, but I'm never afraid of information that is the truth, even if it contradicts a belief I have or whatever. So. I welcome that, because that's really, really good to know, because, if you're going to play, well, so-and-so is appointed by so-and-so, you may have a lot of problem with his decision, but you can't play the partisan appointment card as easy as people or something, because you have the two.
Misunderstand when it comes to judges. Just because they vote a certain way outside, many judges have the capability of setting their own personal ideology aside because they love the law, and although it may not be interpreted in the way you want it to be, they're still doing their job to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
So I don't like when people immediately assume. Like Judge Scalia, I didn't agree with everything that Scalia came up, that he decided, but there are some things that I did. And I understand that although he was a staunch conservative, he was also a very, very true constitutionalist. He loved the law,
yes,
and he interpreted it to the best of his ability with education and his experience, but he didn't bring his politics into it. And that's what a lot of people want judges to do, and they project that onto them.
I agree.
That because they would do it, that the judge would do it. But it's not that often that they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up a great point. By all accounts, including out of their own mouths, they being Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of the more liberal icons of the left on the court, and Anton Scalia.
Good friends.
very, very good friends. And they go, how could that be? Well, for what? Just what you said, Laura. They may interpret the law differently, but they're not there instituting their personal political beliefs. And if you look into the files, because there's some of the audio, not a lot of visual, but there's audio of both of them ruling on certain cases and saying similar. I'm paraphrasing just a little bit, Laura and listeners, but look it up. It's I think it's a very accurate paraphrasal, if you will. Look, before addressing the people that brought the case before the court. Look, I agree personally with what you're saying. My heart is with you. You may even be right, but I'm here to interpret the law, and the law says this is not allowed. I cannot give a yes vote to you, even though my heart is over there with you. Mm-hmm. I didn't take an oath to defend my heart. I took an oath to interpret the Constitution. And man, and Scalia, the same things. That is so difficult to do. And that's when I get in trouble. Sometimes I go, how do you think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg? We've had those friends. We're glad she's gone. I said, you know what? Not really. And they go, what?
Why would you be? It was a man. It was a man who was denied Social Security for his child when his wife died. For her to do first court case in front of the United States Supreme Court. She defended both genders equally.
Yeah. But my point, you asked why would they? Because the pure political aspect rules the day. Same thing with Scalia on the left, somebody on the left saying, like you just said, you would face a lot of probably with some listeners on this show would say, Laura, how could you ever say anything good about Scalia? Don't you know he was the enemy? He had no heart. And you're saying, hey, I don't agree with everything Scalia did. I don't agree with everything Ginsburg did. All we're saying is their motives were kind of righteous. They just saw things in the interpretation of the Constitution differently.
Well, the thing is that when you're a centrist, a true centrist, you can be an equal opportunity offender. You can look at the left and look at the right and say, you all are both idiots.
Amen.
And say it with confidence these days. And the thing is that our politicians need to understand they really need to take a hard look at this country because that's now becoming the majority.
Yeah, you're right. Let me ask you this because we're running out of time. Right on what you just said. If you're on the left, we know where your home is, the Democratic Party. You're on far right, we know where your home is. Politically, where is your home if you're a centrist? Larry? And Laura, stay on there, Laura. Let me go with Larry and then Bob, then I want to end up with you. We got 3 minutes. Where is your home? Or do you just have no place to go? You're twisted in the wind, just getting whipped like a political piñata from both sides.
Your home is voting for the person, not the party. So you're looking at the people who are running, the character that they have demonstrated, the positions they have taken, and they can be on either party for that. Most Americans live in the middle.
But here's my point.
Yeah.
You can go on Twitter, let's say, and say, Trump is an orange-haired homicidal Nazi. You're going to get a ton of people concurring with you on Twitter.
Of course.
You also, if you go on there and say, Joe Biden is a feckless, reckless, dishonest piece of fecal matter. And you're going to get a bunch of people concurring.
Yeah.
If you go on there and said, hey, folks, we need to work together, both parties. We got to work through our disagreements in a respectful way and do our very best to move this country forward because we're in a crisis from our economy to our education to the survival of this country. How many comments are we going to get backing that up? I doubt.
Oh, a lot of people are going to agree with it in the moment. They're just not going to actually do it because that takes work. That takes reading.
Well, if they post it.
Researching people and trying to put the right people in the right position.
Well, they agree in the abstract, not the concrete.
Because a lot of people are fearful.
Yep.
They need, it's like pick a side. It's pick a side time. Yankees or Dodgers, man.
Our media was supposed to accurately educate us about the candidates that we were going to go vote for. That was the idea of having news was them to be able to sit down like your Walter Cronkites and people like that, to just sit down and objectively say, this is what they did, this is what they didn't do, this is what their platform is, you decide. Yeah. But they don't do that anymore.
God, that's so refreshing. Bobby, let's let Bobby close it up. Laura, thank you for calling, dear. Appreciate you so much.
This may be another firm grasp of the obvious. You have to study. You have to read. You have to do your research. And I agree that the majority of the Americans are probably somewhere in the middle. They're certainly not all far right.
But where are your pats on the back? Where are you hanging there? I agree with you. You're absolutely right. Where is that home? Is there a home on the political landscape for that? Or people look at that going, we're so divided, zero-sum game, and you're either one side or the other.
To independent, which is where you are. You know, I think it's not registered anymore. You know,
I think that's where you are. I think that's where you are.
Yeah.
Larry Powell, thank you so much, my brother. Bobby, thank you.
Yep.
Listeners,
always
viewers,
fun.
Thank you. Free for All Friday. You're what make it. Viewership, listenership's going up, and you're either to blame for it or you to be thanked for it. God bless you. God bless America. Just do your best and let God do the rest. See you on Tuesday. Bye-bye now.
It's fun. Well, I got one more quote for you from our friend.
Soul?
Yeah. You seem to be